and they have many things going wrong with them. I'll give you a little, Mordechai and myself were fortunate last summer to be in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim. So you remember, Mordechai, right near my house where I lived, right near the boundary to East Yerushalayim, it was where I lived, it was a 15-minute walk to the Kaisel Maravi. So we were by the boundary where the East Jerusalem began. The last houses, and right next to my house, if you remember, there was a church, right? And always chiming away with the bells and hells and this and that. That church was situated on the street called Chaima Hashlishis. Remember the name of that street? Right a little further down, there was another church. A little further down, there's another church. And why do they need so many churches? All the way down up to the old city. Why did they need so many churches? The Christian population in that area could use 1/10 of all the available churches. And all these churches were built only in the last, only recently. New churches. In the last 40 or 50 or 60 years. And I inquired. What happened is this. This is the story. Were you ever by the American consulate? In front of the American consulate, there is a big rack. You saw it? Mm-hmm. Identical to the racks of the Kaisel Maravi, the exact same kind of a rack. And it's cordoned off with iron gate, iron fence. And usually, when you have such a thing, you would have a plaque explaining what this is. There's no plaque, nothing there. What happened is this. Right outside of what is considered today the old city and the walls of the old city, which is nonsense. The walls of the old city do not designate where the old city limits end. It's a certain Arab had these built up about 400 years ago, and a certain Arab king, and later on he found out that the builders were trying to be economical, and they sort of shrank in the city, and he beheaded all those who were guilty of that. So anyway, they found the diggers, the archaeological diggers found that outside, that many hundreds of yards away from that, from the walls of the old city of Yerushalayim, if they dig, they found another wall with the exact same stones as a Kaisel Maravi, which was the original wall of Yerushalayim. And they found one wall and another wall, and they have like 3 kinds of walls. And the street in which they found that that wall, it was called Chaima Shlishis, the third wall. And that proves that that Yerushalayim extended into that wall, which is right across Mea Shearim, where Mea Shearim begins. Now, the Christians can't swallow that, because they have the garden in which Yashka is buried, they have it right outside of the wall, of the present wall of Yerushalayim. And the Gemara says b'feirish, and they believe in that, and it's part of their tradition, that no mace, no corpse was ever buried in Yerushalayim, with the exception of the family of David HaMelech and Chuda the Neviah. Otherwise, ein kaiverin meisim Yerushalayim. You don't bury meisim in Yerushalayim. So, being that the garden where Yashka is supposed to be buried is right outside of Yerushalayim, but now that the archaeologists found this third wall, means that he was buried in Yerushalayim, which refutes their whole tradition. So what happened? So the Catholic Church immediately started buying off all the real estate of the Chaim Shlishis, and they started building churches, one after the other. And of course, nobody is going to dig what is a church. Nobody is going to dig. So, in other words, that's how they prevented that's how they prevented the surfacing of this fib, but all these racks are a wall under the ground, with the exception of one spot where it comes above the ground, and that's right in front of the American consulate. So it's a historical site, so they build a little fence around it. And the Catholic Church intervened, and they didn't put a plaque there. And the story, and I was told also, that when the Jewish state was established, so of course the Jews, they want to come out with all the information, they want to show that they know, so they wanted to write up all this business. And the Pope was very much opposed to this. So he struck a bargain with the Jewish government. They shouldn't publicize this fact, and he's going to have an audience with Golda Meir. So Golda Meir, if you remember your history, at that time made headlines. She visited the Vatican and she spoke to the Pope, and that was a price. Anyway, I think I went off on a tangent. There are countless such things, that proves that the falsity of their faith. And as far as the Arabs are concerned, it's just plain nonsense. There's nothing to talk about. So anyway, so that's what the Rambam explains. This is the mitzvah of emunah, to believe